She was born with a shadow beneath her tongue. Alejandra Pizarnik came into the world on April 29, 1936, in Avellaneda, a grey city on the outskirts of Buenos Aires, as if poetry had suddenly incarnated itself in the fragile body of a child who did not yet understand the weight of existence. She was the daughter of Elias Pizarnik and Raisla Bromica, Jewish immigrants from Eastern Europe. Alejandra grew up surrounded by a language that was not her own, by stories filled with persecution, flight, and buried silences. In her home echoed the languages of exile, especially Yiddish, while the street offered a Spanish she sometimes barely understood. That clash of tongues, that early fracture of the world, became her first abyss. From a very young age, she felt that something within her was different, an ongoing discomfort, an inner tremor. She stuttered, suffered from asthma, and could not coordinate her body with the ease of other children. While her older sister Miriam was the exemplary daughter, beautiful, confident, radiant, Alejandra withdrew into herself like a wounded animal. The mirror punished her. She felt ugly, clumsy, foreign. Very early on, she began writing poems, verses she kept secret, as if language itself were a pact with the invisible. She did not yet know it, but she had just begun to open a door that would never close again. Her childhood existed in constant tension between the inner and the outer world. At school, classmates stared at her strangely, avoided her. She was different, and she absorbed that awareness like a silent wound. Reading became her refuge. She hid in books, as if they were temples where she could exist without judgment. Over time, she discovered authors such as Rimbaud, Poe, and Baudelaire, writers who felt closer to her than any living human being. Her fascination with darkness was not a pose. It was identity. From childhood, Alejandra understood that beauty did not live in light, but in the tremor that precedes it. One image haunted her imagination, a black flower growing in a sunless garden. That image, which would reappear again and again in her work, was also a symbol of her own childhood. While the world insisted on logic and clarity, Alejandra sensed that real life hid in folds, in the unsaid, in the whisper before the scream. She became an expert at inhabiting silence. As she grew older, her sense of estrangement deepened. She belonged neither to childhood nor adulthood, neither to the language of home nor the language of the street, neither to her body nor to the gaze of others. She was in every sense a living border. That condition of always being in between, never fully belonging, would shape not only her writing, but every decision, every bond, every rupture. During those early years, Alejandra did not yet realize that her pain was her gift. No one, not even herself, could have guessed that this anxious, sickly, silent girl would become one of the most radical, unsettling, and truthful poets of 20th century Latin American literature. But destiny had already planted its seed. In the shadows, the black flower had begun to open its petals. Alejandra Pizarnik's adolescence was an intimate storm, a solitary passage through dark corridors where body and mind collided with violence. If childhood had been a refuge of silence, adolescence became a battlefield. Her body began to change, and she experienced it as betrayal. She felt monstrous, deformed, excluded from any possible beauty. Her stutter persisted, but it was no longer merely physical. It became symbolic, a barrier, an emblem of deeper anguish. Alejandra could not speak, yet she could not remain silent. The word that once sheltered her now pierced. Poetry was not yet art. It was survival. In high school, her maladjustment intensified. She rejected classes, teachers, the forced normalcy of her peers. She read the surrealists obsessively, the French symbolists, the philosophers of. She read in French with a dictionary in hand, driven by a near feverish hunger. She discovered she was not alone. Others, like her, had found in language a place for pain. Literature was not an escape. It was a revelation. She began writing constantly in notebooks, on napkins, in the margins of books. Her texts were fragmented, dark, filled with dreamlike symbols and repetitions. She was not trying to communicate. She was trying to exercise. It was during these years that death first appeared as a recurring theme. Death was not an ending. It was a mirror. She imagined it, invoked it, conversed with it. This was not adolescent posturing. Alejandra flirted with the idea of suicide long before she knew how a pill worked. The death drive was not fantasy. It was a way of naming the unnameable. Her rebellion sharpened. She gravitated toward intellectual circles, read the existentialists, kept intimate diaries she later burned. She dressed in black, spoke little, wrote endlessly. She tried unsuccessfully to escape herself. Her body, her eternal enemy, became a burden. She began taking amphetamines to lose weight, a practice she would never fully abandon. This marked the beginning of a long and painful struggle with her image, her weight, her physical perception. She never fully inhabited her body. There was always one Alejandra inside and another outside, and both lived at war. It was also during this period that she chose to change her legal name from Flora Alejandra to simply Alejandra. That act of erasure was her first conscious gesture of self-rewriting. She wanted to remove what did not belong to her, to shed imposed marks, even familiar ones. In that act lived both rebirth and annihilation. If she could not inhabit the world as expected, she would inhabit it on her own terms, among books, shadows, broken words, and solitary rituals. She began frequenting bookstores, attending literary talks, timidly approaching the intellectual world of Buenos Aires. Though she had not yet published, she was already writing with a burning intensity. Some of her earliest texts circulated among close friends, understanding teachers. She did not seek recognition. She sought an answer to a question she could never articulate without breaking inside. During those years, her mother tried unsuccessfully to normalize her. There were attempts at therapy, doctors, forced corrections, but Alejandra was untamable. Where others saw illness, she found radical sensitivity. And though she suffered deeply from isolation, there was something in that solitude that fed her creative drive. Anguish did not paralyze her. It became fire. On the edge of adulthood, she had already learned there would be no refuge in the real world. Her only possible home would be language, even if that home had walls of fog and glass ceilings collapsing over her head. Poetry would not be her profession. It would be her destiny. If you are enjoying this video, I invite you to subscribe, leave a like, and share your thoughts in the comments. That small gesture helps us continue creating meaningful content for you. Thank you for being here. Let us continue. At 20 years old, Alejandra Pizarnik had not tamed her ghosts, but she had begun to shape them. It was the 1950s in Buenos Aires, a city in cultural upheaval, crossed by European existentialism, political crisis, and a generation of young artists hungry for truth. In the midst of that ferment, Alejandra enrolled in the Faculty of Philosophy and Letters at the University of Buenos Aires. She studied literature and philosophy, but classrooms felt as oppressive as they had in childhood. She listened to professors with distance, took notes frenetically, but never felt she belonged. For her, knowledge did not come from lectures, but from rupture. There she met other aspiring writers, marginal poets, nocturnal intellectuals. She frequented literary cafes, dark bookstores, small publishing houses. She surrounded herself with figures who would later become key to Argentine culture, such as Olga Orozco, Juan Jacobo Bajalia, and above all Leon Ostrov, her mentor in literary criticism, whom she would later call the first person who read her as a poet. With him, she shared a spiritual affinity. Poetry was not ornament. It was an open wound. In 1955, she published her first book, The Most Alien Land, a brief volume, barely noticed, yet overflowing with darkness. It was not a commercial success, nor did she expect it to be, but it marked the beginning of a poetic career defined by intensity, introspection, and an aesthetic of uprootedness. She wrote as one scratches at a locked door. Her verses were short, blunt, desperate. Her language already revealed what would become her signature. The use of emptiness as form, silence as word, death as horizon. Her environment did not know how to read her. She did not fit social poetry nor classical confession. She followed another path, one of broken symbols, split selves, absent bodies. Her figure began to stand out in Buenos Aires intellectual circles, though her physical presence remained elusive. She was both inside and outside. When she attended gatherings, she did so with a mix of shyness and defiance. She spoke little, observed deeply, scribbled phrases on napkins that later became verses. No one knew whether she wanted to be seen or vanish. During this period, she also explored painting. She took classes at the School of Fine Arts and developed an intense relationship with color, line, and form. She did not seek technique. She sought release. Her paintings were dark, obsessive, almost childlike. Color offered a sensory experience language could not hold. Yet even there, death appeared as stain, shadow, persistence. Her relationship with her family grew more strained. Her mother, pragmatic and conservative, did not understand her path. Alejandra did not want a job, a family, or the roles expected of a woman at the time. She wanted to write, nothing else. She lived among libraries, unmade beds, cafes, and notebooks filled with erasures. She slept poorly, ate poorly, thought excessively. Amphetamine use increased, not only to control her weight, but to endure the intensity of her own mind. Insomnia became routine. Her body deteriorated slowly, but her writing grew more ferocious. She wrote not to please or shine, but to survive. She published her second book, The Last Innocents, in 1956, where her tone became more confessional and raw. These poems searched for identity while accepting chaos. They did not offer answers. They offered wounds. By the late 50s, she published Lost Adventures, a book that established her as a disturbing and unmistakable voice. Here her mastery of brevity, explosive imagery, and unexpected turns was evident. A poet was born not for stages or awards, but for tremor. At 24, she sensed she did not belong to any country. She felt compelled to cross the ocean, to seek herself far from familiar voices. Thus, she made a decision that would change her life. She left for Paris, not for glamour or tourism. Paris was myth, promise, reflection of the dead poets who inhabited her. She went in search of Rimbaud, Breton, absolute foreignness. And though she did not know it, the city would both give her wings and sink her deeper. When Alejandra Pizarnik arrived in Paris in 1960, she did not seek inspiration. She sought disappearance. The city was a mirage from her adolescent readings, the stage of her literary gods. She arrived as another shadow among shadows, without money, without solid contacts, carrying only a few letters of recommendation and an ancient hunger to write without noise, without homeland, without form. Paris received her coldly, but with promise. She attended courses at the Sorbonne related to literature and the history of religions. She did so not out of academic vocation, but to impose some order on her internal chaos. Paris offered a less suffocating solitude than Buenos Aires. She was no longer strange. She was simply foreign. In that anonymity, she found relief. Life there was harsh. She lived in cheap boarding houses, translated occasional texts to survive, wandered aimlessly for hours. She spent entire days in libraries, reading in French and Spanish, in absolute silence. She met Latin American poets living in France, including Octavio Paz, who became one of her strongest supporters. He encouraged her, translated her, admired her. Yet praise never sufficed. Alejandra mistrusted kindness. Every compliment sounded false. In Paris, her poetry deepened. Her writing became more stripped down, more philosophical, and more violent. She experimented with fragmentation, interruption, stammering as a way to express the unspeakable. The influence of Antonin Artaud was decisive. She discovered the body as text, pain as inseparable from writing. She began to speak of the cage of the body, the dead child within, the other side of language she could not reach. During her Paris years, she wrote one of her most significant books, Tree of Diana, published in 1962 with a prologue by Octavio Paz. This book marked a radical shift. It consisted of minimal poems, like knife cuts. Each text was an eruption, a painful epiphany. Silence between verses spoke as loudly as words. With this book, Pizarnik ceased to be a promise and became a disturbing certainty. No one wrote like her. She immersed herself in existential philosophy. Sartre, Heidegger, Kierkegaard, Simone Weil obsessed her, not as systems, but as witnesses to anguish. She had brief romances, intense and fleeting. She loved fiercely and fled quickly. Desire was crossed by fear. Insomnia became constant. Amphetamines became routine. Her body began to crack. Hallucinations appeared. Yet, she never stopped writing. Writing was the only thread tying her to the world. After nearly 4 years, she returned to Buenos Aires in 1964. Paris had given her maturity and books, but also confirmed that there was no refuge. The void followed her. She returned not as one coming home, but as one accepting that her only home would be hell. From here, her life intensified toward collapse, recognition, and inner disintegration. She published, suffered, wrote, unraveled, until finally, in 1972, exhausted beyond repair, Alejandra Pizarnik ended her life. She was 36 years old. Her death did not close her presence. It multiplied it. If you have reached this point and have not yet subscribed, now is the moment. Activate notifications, leave a comment, tell us what you think, who you would like to see in a future video, or simply say hello. That small gesture makes a real difference and allows us to keep creating content like this. Thank you for listening.